Hey there. Today I'm going to talk about Scrum. It's the most popular Agile framework in the industry. Now, I'm the CEO of an Agile consulting firm, but I'm also Lieutenant Colonel and C-17 pilot in the Air Force Reserves. So I've worked with a ton of teams in the private sector on implementing and working through Scrum. In this video, I'm going to explain what Scrum is, how it works, and hopefully try to relate it to what you do in the military. But before we jump in, let's quick recap on the last video about Agile. Remember that Agile is a set of principles. It's a philosophy. It's not a specific framework. And when compared to a waterfall development project, Agile is more iterative, more flexible in how it's implemented. Agile is kind of like an umbrella term, and under that umbrella is a series of different frameworks for how to implement Agile. And Scrum by far is the most popular framework in the industry. So what is Scrum? Well, it's not an acronym like most people think. It actually comes from rugby, and it's where the team would interlock arms, working together to try to move the ball forward. It was created by Jeff Sutherland and Kem Schwaber. They're both authors on the Agile Manifesto, and they developed Scrum as a lightweight framework to help software teams implement Agile. Now, what's interesting to us as veterans is that Jeff Sutherland graduated from West Point and was a pilot in the Air Force. So it's not really a lie to say that Scrum was actually created from some of the core tenets of military operations. And it's really taken off in the private sector. About 75, 3/4 of all technology teams in the industry use some version of Scrum. So it's important to understand what it is, because you're probably going to come across it at some point in your career, even if you don't go into technology. So let's start out by talking about who's who on a Scrum team. Now, there's only 3 positions in the Scrum framework. First, there's the development team. This is everyone on the team who's doing the technical implementation of the work. It can be software engineers, but it could also be analysts, quality testers, database admins, basically anyone who's doing the technical problem solving. Then there's a position called the product owner. This is the person responsible for determining what the team should prioritize, making sure they understand the end user's needs. They're the voice of the customer for the software development team, and they make tough priority decisions. Now, this position kind of acts like a junior military officer on a military unit, but there's no command and control element. They aren't a boss, but rather they're a member of the team. And then finally, there's the Scrum Master. Now, the Scrum Master is a servant leader who's responsible for making the team as effective as possible. They ensure the framework is implemented and is actually being followed. They protect the team so the team can focus on the work. They help facilitate meetings, and they work with the team to remove impediments that are blocking the team. You could kind of make a comparison to like a senior NCO in a military unit, but again, there's no hierarchy here. Everyone on the Scrum team is one team, one fight. And this team works together to build something of value for an organization. And they operate in what is called a sprint, or you may hear iteration, and those are really interchangeable terms. So what is a sprint? Remember that Agile teams operate in an iterative fashion. So in the Scrum framework, they want teams to set a time box for that iteration, and they call that a sprint. So these are typically 2 weeks long, but I've seen them be 1 week or 3 weeks. It doesn't matter what the length is. The important thing is that it's on a set cadence. And when a sprint ends, it ends. It doesn't extend because we didn't finish all the work. And a sprint is really just that. It's a time box for the team to be heads down on delivering value, or to sprint to deliver something of value. So now that we know who's on a Scrum team and that they operate in sprints, let's take a look at what the Scrum framework is all about and what goes on inside of a sprint. Now, there's 4 key ceremonies inside of a Scrum sprint, and I'm going to review each one of these, walk you through what a typical Scrum sprint looks like. But there's one more thing we should cover first, and that's the idea of a product backlog. So Scrum teams, they're delivering something of value, and they have an objective, kind of like we had missions in the military. And because Scrum is an agile framework, it breaks bigger objectives into smaller chunks to complete in an iterative fashion. Or put another way, they take big rocks, they break them into smaller rocks to do them more do it in an incremental way. And so the product backlog is essentially a series of small rocks, and those rocks are called user stories. And user stories are small chunks of functionality that are valuable to the end user. Those user stories get prioritized in the product backlog with the highest value items on top. So think about this from a military perspective. If we had to do a mission somewhere, we wouldn't just go. We would break it down into chunks, all right? And then we would do those things incrementally. Like big efforts broken into smaller chunks makes it a lot easier to prioritize and focus on the task. And that's what Scrum teams are doing. Now the product owner, they're responsible for creating and prioritizing the user stories in the product backlog. And the product backlog really is a key artifact for Scrum because it allows the teams to change priority, to pivot, and to ensure they're working on the highest priority or the most valuable thing. And so the product backlog is where a Scrum sprint starts. And it starts at the sprint planning meeting. Now during this meeting, the whole team gets together. They review the user stories in the product backlog, and they determine as a team what they're going to accomplish during the upcoming sprint. The product owner is responsible for ensuring the user stories are in priority order. They have enough information so the development team can actually work on them. And in this meeting, the development team is going to ask clarifying questions. And then they're going to accept the user stories from the backlog. This is a really important point because the product owner decides priority, but the development team determines what goes into the sprint based on how it's going to be implemented. And when they're done, they have what's called a sprint backlog, which is essentially a mini product backlog for that has all the user stories that the team's going to accomplish over the next sprint. Like this is exactly what we did in the military. During like any mission planning exercise, we would review the mission, talk through the steps to get there, and then make sure everyone is aligned to the plan. So just like mission planning in the military, Scrum teams are going to review the plan, talk about risks, make sure everyone's on the same page. And after the sprint planning session, they spend the rest of their sprint just implementing the user stories that they came up with in planning. Now sometimes teams are going to work together on problems and user stories, and sometimes they're all going to work independently on different tasks. So to keep everybody aligned, the team's going to attend a daily stand-up. Now it's called the daily stand-up for a reason. The idea is that everyone's standing up, not sitting down, because the meeting should be short and succinct. And ideally it's around 15 minutes. And it's not just a status update. It's an opportunity for each member to review like what they completed during the last day, what they're planning on working on next. And really most importantly, to raise any issues or blockers that they're having. Like this meeting ensures communication and tight alignment so everyone's on the same page of what's going on during the sprint. Now as veterans, we did this type of thing all the time. Daily briefs were a common occurrence. We understand the value of alignment and communication. I mean, it's how we identified and addressed risks and issues early. And this is the same reason why the daily stand-up is a pillar of the Scrum framework. So they do this for, let's say, a 2-week sprint. And then at the end of the sprint, the team comes together for a sprint review. Now this meeting is an opportunity for the team to basically show and tell what they've been working on. They'll show the working software and actual valuable things to other members on their team, to the product owner, and also to like key stakeholders or users. And they do this mainly because they want to get feedback and make sure that the stuff that they're building is actually working. Like it is possible that what they built doesn't actually work, or it's not what the stakeholders or the users or even the product owner was expecting. So by showing it to the team, they can get instant feedback and make adjustments. Like every exercise or mission I've been on had some sort of mission debrief. And this is just it's the exact same thing, just in a different context. And once the team completes a sprint review, they come together for the final ceremony during a Scrum sprint, a team retrospective. Okay, so during this meeting, which is usually facilitated by the Scrum Master, the team's going to review what went well, what didn't, but most importantly, they're going to come up with specific action items they can take to improve their team, their product, and their processes. Like in the military, this is an after-action meeting, or we used to call a murder board. It's what we did well and what we didn't do well, and what we need to work on for next time. Like this type of event is how we created high-performing teams in the military, because we want to learn from our mistakes and find incremental ways to get better. Teams are teams, like regardless of what industry or context you're in. And Scrum institutionalizes continuous improvement through this ceremony. And when the retrospective's over, the sprint ends and the team starts the process all over again. And they start with a sprint planning meeting. And honestly, that's basically an overview of Scrum. Now, I'm not going to say that this is all you need to know. This is just an overview to give you some familiarity. People often say, look, Scrum, it's easy to implement, but it's really hard to master. But once you get the basics, you'll realize that the leadership and operational experience that you had in the military becomes really valuable because it's a framework for teaming, and it's not that different from what we did in the military. And that's why I think Scrum has become almost the default Agile framework, because it provides enough structure to improve collaboration and alignment. It emphasizes continuous improvement and provides clear transparency. It's also really mission focused. So I'm going to drop a link in the description to Jeff Sutherland's book on Scrum, because it provides a great overview of his military experience and how that translates into the Scrum framework. In the next few videos, I'll dive deeper into the different aspects of these positions and how to be effective at implementing Scrum. But let me just say this. Your experience operating in the military sets you up for being effective in the Scrum world. The same principles apply because it's a teaming framework for dynamic situations. It's what we've done as veterans. So if you find yourself on a Scrum team or you're interested in getting into Scrum, rest assured your experience is valuable. Thanks for watching and good luck out there.